Our case concerns Leib, a man with Alzheimer's who has recently been afflicted with heart failure. Shayna, Leib's healthcare proxy, has entrusted us with the decision of whether Leib will be kept alive with an IABP pump. His daughter now has 3 options. She can have the doctor perform a surgery, which, if successful, will control the heart issue. Leib would have a 25 to 30% chance of dying, option A. She could leave the IABP in, which would lead to death in about a week, option B. Or she could remove the IABP and medicinally treat the heart failure, which would result in 1 to 3 months of consciousness, all in the hospital, option C. Leib's daughters came to us seeking advice on which option is the most halachically acceptable. We assert that option A is the most halachically appropriate option Shayna can choose for Leib because it gives him the best chance of maximizing his lifespan. When evaluating this case, our first task is to determine whether Leib is a gosses, one who is actively dying. Rav Moshe Feinstein helps define a gosses as someone whom, quote, medical intervention cannot benefit. A gosses is someone who can, a gosses is not someone who can be healed, seeing that the gosses has no specific pathology. It is, quote, his time to die. It is halakhically unacceptable to actively cause the death of a gosses, but we may remove impediments to his death. If Leib were a gosses, doing the surgery would not be allowed, since according to Rav Moshe Feinstein, quote, no medical intervention is permitted for a gosses. He goes on to say this is because if one is a gosses, quote, physicians have already determined that no intervention can help him. Leib is not a gosses, so this rule does not apply to him. Doctors have already determined that medical intervention has the potential to extend his life. Many commentaries, including the Tzitz Eliezer, Igro Moshe, and Sefer Hasidim, deal with a situation in which the intention behind the intervention is to speed up the death of the patient. In our case, though, the intention is to extend life, not just save it. The final objection surgery imposes that because Leib has Alzheimer's, he is like a gosses, or one who is already dead. This is not true. As Igro Moshe in a commentary on quality of life decision says, quote, I see no truth in my words that there is no obligation to heal someone who is mentally incompetent. Natan, tell us more about why we should choose option A.
Toda Rabbi, we have shown that Leib is not a gosses because medical intervention can benefit him. One might be hesitant to follow option A because there's a 25% chance that Leib will die on the operating table. Masechet Avodah Zarah teaches that one may not accept medical help from an idolater unless it is certain that the patient will die if no help is given. In the context of this statement, the idolater represents a potential threat to the patient's life. One is only permitted to risk death at the hands of an idolater if natural death is imminent. In our case, the potential of death in surgery is analogous to the potential of death at the hands of an idolater. So according to this text, we should risk Leib's life to save him from certain death. Tosafot and Avodah Zarah resolves this discrepancy between Yoma's, quote, preserving the life of the moment, and Avodah Zarah's, quote, we are not concerned with the life of the moment, by saying that we are only to risk the life of a Chayei Shah when there's no other way to extend his life. Leib is a Chayei Shah because he faces foreseeable but not immediately impending death if he's left on the pump. So by providing the surgery to Leib, we quote, choose the possibility of life over certain death. In a Breita, Rabbi Yishmael says that if a doctor withholds treatment for fear of killing the patient, he is considered bloodshed. Thus, even if we fear that surgery will end Leib's life, we are not allowed to choose option B and withhold treatment. Rabbi Feinstein claims that the only quality of life distinction that can be made to Chayei Shah is to forbid a procedure that only briefly extends life in the same condition. According to this source, option B is forbidden as it only provides a week of life in the same state. There are many other authoritative texts that undermine the halakhic plausibility of option B. Masechet Yoma says that we should violate Shabbat to extend one's life for even an hour. We should therefore go to great length to extend Leib's life. The commandment to not be idle and simply allow Leib to die, and Avodah Zarah's ruling to undertake significant risk in order to possibly extend life are both powerful rebukes of option B. Moreover, when looking at the Ramah, your Hava Amina might have been that option B is lawfully appropriate because it says that you may remove impediments to death, and the IABP is most certainly an impediment to death. However, this ruling is only applicable to a gosses, and as we have demonstrated, Leib is not a gosses. Thus, so far, we lack a plausible halakhic source for permitting option B. In the Rastaza of Rabbi Shlomo Auerbach, he states that because all sick people want their pain to be relieved, and because we must love your neighbor as thyself, we must do what we can to relieve pain, even if it is potentially dangerous to the patient. In our case, option A relieves pain and will most likely extend life at the small risk of shortening it. So when our intention is not only to relieve pain, but also to extend life, call the Homer, we can permit a risky procedure that relieves pain. Now I hand it over to my friend Adine Feder to explore the plausibility of option B and C.
Thank you, Natan. Though we believe option A to be the most halakhically reasonable decision, an argument can be made to permit Shayna to choose option B or C. Rabbi Eli Dorf proposes using the category of treifa to evaluate end-of-life decisions for those people who would die of natural causes were they not on life support. Using the prism of Trefa may make sense in our age of modern science, in which someone with a life-threatening internal blemish who would otherwise be a gossess can be kept medically alive pretty much indefinitely. The Talmud says that one who kills a Trefa is not liable for punishment. Rabbi Dorff uses the category of Trefa to enable one with an incurable ailment in one of their internal organs to decline invasive treatment because a Trefa is considered to be less alive than healthy people. Choosing to define Leib as a Trefa would open up the option of denying him life-extending but invasive treatment. Neither option B nor option C are invasive, while surgery would be quite invasive. So if Leib is a Trefa, Shayna would be halakhically permitted to choose option B or C instead of A. However, if Leib is a Trefa, then option C is still preferable to option B. The Tzitz Eliezer claims that it is not a mitah yafa to die with tubes and machines attached to one's body. Choosing option B is likely to result in the tube outcome after the failure of the IABP. Option C, however, allows Leib to die in the most dignified way. He will be unsedated and surrounded by his family. So Micah, should Shayna really choose to go with option C?
Well, good question indeed. A is actually still the superior option. We've already seen that because options B and C withhold potentially life-saving treatment, they are forbidden according to the Duri Uredeah. The rabbis, when they discussed the idea of, quote, not standing idly by, were more interested in the possibility of saving a life than promoting a dignified death, In this reading, it is wrong to do anything except the surgery. Of course, you could justify option C by saying that, quote, not standing idly by actually means easing the hardships of the patient. However, the examples Sanhedrin gives when it discusses this issue relate to the Jew's obligation to relieve a threat altogether and not just help the victim adapt to that threat. In conclusion, we'd only feel comfortable allowing option C under the halacha of Trefa if Shayna were experiencing extreme anguish, as is suggested by Dr. Barry Ginsburg. Otherwise, our recommendation is that Shayna choose option A. Because the family has not expressed any preferences, we do not take into account the possible alternative to what we have suggested here. In conclusion, it is the opinion of our group that Shayna choose option A and go forward with the surgery. We believe option A is the best option because it has the potential to maximize Leib's life while advised by both contemporary and traditional halacha. It is the overwhelming consensus of halacha that when one is not a gossess, as Leib is not, we must extend life for as long as possible. This is ultimately why option A is preferable to both B and C. Furthermore, although Rabbi Dorff's Trefa category sanctions B and C, this has far less weight than the principle of extending life, which has been discussed and stressed by rabbis for hundreds of years. Choice A has the highest reward out of all the choices and should be the one chosen by Shayna for the practical and halakhic reasoning that we have mentioned. Thank you.
You spoke that option C was not acceptable because of the, quote, severe anguish that it would cause. Did I hear that correctly?
No.
Okay, can you please restate then? Can you clarify
Yes.
What was the quote with the severe anguish? I didn't catch it.
The severe anguish of the Alzheimer's after it were the surgery to be done successfully.
Essentially, what we're saying is that due to sort of kavod habriot and extenuating circumstances, there is a halakhically defensible case for permitting Shayna to choose option C. We believe that option A is the most halakhically defensible and reasonable. However, because it's such a complicated decision and could put both Shayna and potentially her father under extreme emotional duress, if that were the case, then we were saying that option C is a halakhically defensible option.
I heard you quote Rabbi Auerbach, his position to say that pain is a substantive factor that can be considered, and then you said, based on what he said, that option A is a good option because option A will relieve pain. Did you consider the idea that option A also causes the most pain because this is a significant surgery, and if so, how do you weigh short-term pain of what I understand to be possibly open heart surgery, or at least something that is very significant medically, and longer term healing? Just give us a little clarification on your use of the Rabbi Auerbach source with regard to pain.
Just to clarify, are you talking about the immediate pain of the surgery or the long-term pain?
The significant immediate pain of the surgery.
Basically, we thought that Leib is going to be sedated during the surgery, and so he won't feel that immediate pain, and afterwards, the pain he will be feeling is while he's healing. And basically, what we thought there is, it's still, even though there's going to be pain there, we can't not perform a life-saving surgery just because he's going to feel pain.
Also, just following up on that, we do have pretty clear sources in the tradition that maybe don't necessarily talk specifically about the pain to be endured by the person on the operating table, but we discuss sources about being permitted to go to an idolatrous doctor where the concern isn't explicitly pain, but there is a concern of death, and you're still still supposed to incur that risk. And then I think the second thing is we have sources that say you're permitted. The Talmud in Yoma discusses, moving rubble in order to, help save somebody's life. And I think the implication is clear that you're supposed to violate Shabbat to save somebody's life, and violating Shabbat isn't a physical pain, but it's still something that carries great weight in the Jewish tradition. So when it comes to saving a life, it's clearly something that takes precedence over other negative consequences.
I'll also just quickly add to that relieving the pain also has to do with the emotional pain, right? We're essentially, in a way, bringing this man back to life and making his daughter very, very, very happy. And that, I think Natan also put it very well. If there's going to be pain, it's going to be healing pain. And although it's pain, you can kind of take it for the good, and it's going to be this short-term, very low risk, especially if the surgery is successful, for really a huge long-term benefit, both physically and emotionally.
I'd like to question that long-term benefit, because he doesn't have any meaningful communication with the outside world. He has advanced dementia, and we do have statements. For example, the Gemara in Sota, which talks about the city of blues, where people live forever, and it says that people. It says El Zakeni Bizman Shidda Tan Katzele, when they're in pain, or you might even say when they've said I've had enough, right? It says either there's two gersas here, either Yotzin or Motzin. One is more radical than the other. It says we just allow them to go out, we just allow them to die, or the other gersa says Motzin, we actually can help them in that process. So if I can understand saying they're not a gosses, but they're going to have a quality, but afterwards you're saying they're going to have an extended life. But what kind of life is that? And why do you think Shayna would actually want their father to live another 20 years in this kind of state?
So first of all, the Ibra Moshe says that we're not supposed to take into any distinction as to intellect or competence. So that's basically why we ignored his mental state that he's in. And then also in regards to that source about blues, we basically thought that's a special case. We can't take that into our counties. That's basically a city where the angel of death can't physically enter. And so we didn't actually think you could apply a case where the actual angel of death can enter to contemporary life.
Adding on to that, it's we especially use the Iker Moshe source as just the in-the-moment decision whether or not we are going to take action and have surgery, and the Iker Moshe clearly points out that we should do that based on that we are obligated to heal and save any means possible any human being without any sufficient intellect or competence. And that quote, that is basically saying we are obligated to save someone intellectually.
We're not going to go this very invasive with a high risk and low yield, because ultimately he spoke of the death of his life. I don't know what Shayna feels about Robert's stats right now.
Well, I think first of all, because we don't believe Leib qualifies as a GOSES, we're not permitted to do anything other than extending his life for as long as possible. Otherwise, we'd be considered bloodshedders. On the other hand, we understand that this case is, and all end-of-life decisions like this are incredibly emotionally involved and complex, and that's part of the reason that we wanted to make a halakhically defensible case for option C. And to be clear, we definitely recommend option A is the most halakhically defensible position from the perspective of halakha. On the other hand, it's not the position of the Beit Din to try to understand the minutiae of Shayna's family life and of the emotional toll that these things can take, and so we are leaving open this other option C.
I just wanted to add, there was a great presentation, but I just do want to add, like in terms of actual PSOC and how PSOC works, very often a POSEC would take into account the dynamics of what's going on within a family context and the rendering of a decision like this. But thank you very much.